Hey, what's up guys, ImpulseEvan here, and today I am bringing you guys another video, and in this video I'm going to be reacting to the newest FNAF video. This is on the Mimic, the story from Nexi, the Tales from the Pizzaplex Book 6. I usually try to stay clear of the spoilers, but everyone's been talking about the Mimic. It's kind of hard to escape the spoilers, so I basically know everything about the story, so at this point I don't really care anymore about them, at least for this story. For the rest I don't really want to know anything, and like I don't really know everything, so I'm still trying to stay as clear as possible from the spoilers. When the book actually does come out, I'm going to obviously read the stories, and like I always do, I'm going to be doing summaries on the stories. But for this video, we're going to be reacting to the new FNAF video, which is based around the Mimic, I'm pretty sure, considering that's what's in the thumbnail and stuff. So, I just want to say, we should really appreciate the look on his face right here. But I have not seen this yet. I've heard a little bit about this, but I don't know exactly what he's going to be saying. I do want to start the video by saying that I am a fan of FNAF. I think his theories are interesting. I like that he goes deep into some of the smaller details and stuff. But I don't always agree with him, and I might not today, so even if I do disagree with him, don't take that as me disliking him, because I do like him a lot. So, let's get started. Appreciate the face once again. Oh, wow. And let's begin.
Recently, the entire FNAF community has lost their minds over something called the Mimic. This new character has apparently solved a bunch of mysteries surrounding Security Breach. And in this video, I'm going to explain what the Mimic is and my theory for how I think it fits into the game's story. The Mimic is actually something we've heard before in this franchise. The first instance of the word Mimic being used in a FNAF game was actually in FNAF World with the Mimic Ball. If you use this ability while fighting enemies, it would mimic any attack you made, therefore sending that same attack a second time. But as far as the Mimic we know today, there's actually two versions of it. The program version of it was actually introduced last month in the last Tales book in a story called The Storyteller, but more on that later. The physical Mimic was actually introduced in the most recent Tales book in a story called The Mimic. This book actually doesn't release until May 2nd.
It was released in the Mimic first appeared in the epilogues, but yeah, so this book has not come out yet. It's coming out in 2 days from when this video is going out. 3 days for me.
Stores are just putting them on the shelves early, and that's how I got it. The Mimic centers around Edwin and his son David, who was known for carrying around a white tiger plushie. After Edwin's wife Fiona passed away while giving birth to David, he was now a single father with little money. Edwin worked for Fazbear Entertainment as an engineer, building and fixing robots such as Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy for the company. The story states that one of the first animatronics he created was a robotic vacuum cleaner. He then sold enough of the vacuums to start his own company, but his company ended up failing and being bought out by Fazbear Entertainment for unknown reasons. The Fazbear executive stated that Edwin was, quote, doing the right thing. Now, as a single dad who's low on money, he lived in an abandoned factory. He turned a portion of the factory into a makeshift apartment for him and his son to live in. One day, David kept asking his dad,
I'm straight up getting spoilers for the entire story.
Edwin had to say no because he was so behind on his work. He realized he needed someone or something to watch over his son and keep him entertained so he could devote more time to his work. He then built the Mimic, an endoskeleton running a software Edwin created called Mimic 1. The endoskeleton was programmed to mimic anything it saw. David loved the endoskeleton, and Edwin was finally able to get a ton of work done. The Mimic even eventually had its own makeshift tiger plushie that it carried around, just like David's. Everything was great until one day when Edwin was busy working, David chased after his red ball that was rolling into the street and got hit by a car. Edwin, so overwhelmed with sadness and rage, was only left with the Mimic, who was still mimicking his deceased son. In a fit of rage, Edwin destroyed the endoskeleton, hitting it over and over again with a metal rod. The story then skips ahead in time to a few months later. Edwin is missing, and a group of Fazbear employees were sent to the abandoned factory where Edwin and his son lived for unknown reasons. The entrance to the building had double doors. I had no idea about any of this. Once you were inside. Now locked inside, the Fazbear employees were left to deal with the Mimic, who started brutally killing them one by one. The Mimic loved dressing up in disguises, using old costumes left behind by Edwin. The Mimic first used
Alright.
a jester costume, then switched its costume to other characters, eventually killing off every employee by ripping off their limbs. The Mimic was taught to mimic whatever it saw, so after that day where Edwin took all of his anger out on it, it now was going to do the same to anyone it came in contact with. So let me know if you've
I know
heard
about
this
that.
before. So we've got a dad who built a robot for his kid. The kid dies with his death involving a car. Now the robot was then literally a robotic version of his kid. The dad then, after the death of his kid, pours his agony into the robot, beats it up, and now the robot is an evil version of his now deceased kid. This story is quite literally mimicking Henry's story. Edwin was revealed to be the creator of the main 4 animatronics, something Henry also reveals to be the case.
Small souls trapped in prisons of my making.
We literally see Edwin's robotic vacuum in Henry's pizzeria in FNAF 6. Henry rebuilt his daughter Charlie after her murder, which also involved a car. In the books, Henry pours his agony into the adult Charlie bot, who Afton then steals and turns into Baby/Elizabeth.
Yeah, but he doesn't do that in the
Baby lured
games.
kids in with ice cream, which was David's favorite snack. So if Baby really is the in-game version of the Mimic, is there in-game evidence to back this up? Well, let's look back at the first game Baby was introduced in, FNAF World. JC Jack on Twitter pointed out that the Mendo character from FNAF World could easily be a mix of the words Mimic and Endo. A character named Mimic was already established in the game, so that's not too hard to believe. But the Mimic Ball and Mendo also share one very distinct feature.
Yeah, it's kind of like Yendo, how Yendo is named Y Endo, like yellow Endo. It could be kind of like that. That kind of makes sense.
Antenna on top of both of their heads.
Okay.
This antenna can also be found on another character in this franchise, Baby. But not just Baby. The antenna also shows up on every animatronic we know that Henry created. As we know, the whole idea of Afton stealing the Charlie bot and turning it into Baby was in the Silver Eyes trilogy, which began releasing a whole 6 months before Baby was introduced in FNAF World Update 2. It was also Update 2 that Scott said he wanted to pull elements from for FNAF Into Madness. If you keep up with the channel, you already know that I think FNAF Into Madness is the games we are currently playing, with the BB World game and Security Breach literally being called Scott Into Madness in the game files. The name Into Madness came from Foxy.exe, where Foxy says,
"Be sure your step through the heart of madness."
This was Scott introducing the idea of a character entering the real world by driving the player of a minigame into madness, which is what we see happen to Vanessa in FNAF VR, and now I believe happened to Gregory when he played the BB World game. The character you unlock when you beat Foxy.exe in Update 2 is Nightmare, the evil/dark version of Charlie, which is quite literally what Baby is in the books. Not to mention in Security Breach, there's a secret room in the Endo Daycare that features an endoskeleton that only activates once you grab the Nightmare plush sitting in front of it. I believe Baby, aka the evil version of Charlie that Henry built and then Afton stole, is the big bad and will be revealed to be the big bad in the DLC. I know that sounds insane, but stay with me. Now, I know all of you hardcore mimic Henry built and then Afton stole is I believe Baby, aka the evil version of Charlie that Henry built and then Afton stole, is the big bad and will be revealed to be the big bad in the DLC.
You know, I literally had the exact same idea, but I believed that it was Patient 46, and then Gregory was revealed to be Patient 46, so then I stopped believing that. I mean, I think maybe that could still be the case, but is she literally the Mimic? No. I don't think Elizabeth herself would be the Mimic. I mean, it's technically possible. Like, if you think about it, Vanessa could potentially be possessed by Elizabeth. Potentially, maybe. And Vanessa's possessed by Glitchtrap, so if we're to say that Elizabeth is Glitchtrap, that would be kind of weird, but also kind of cool, but also... Maybe she's, like, mimicking her father because she likes to... Well, because she wants to make him proud, right? I don't know, though. I feel like that would just be, like, really weird. I don't know. I see what he's saying though, and it could make sense, but I don't know.
I know that sounds insane, but stay with me. Now,
it does kind of sound
all of
insane.
You hardcore mimic enjoyers are pressing X to doubt everything I've said in this video so far because of one very important thing I left out, the epilogues. So let's talk about them. If you don't know, at the end of every Tales from the Pizzaplex book, there's an epilogue, and all of these epilogues from every book are one coherent story. The epilogues in the Tales books also feature the Mimic. The story begins with some workers who were hired to clean clean up the old pizzeria we see under the Pizzaplex. While they were cleaning though, they received a delivery of quote state-of-the-art animatronics that were for the Pizzaplex. These were presumably the Glamrock animatronics. One of the workers quickly noticed that one of the animatronics was destroyed, saying quote, well, they're gonna need another guitarist, referring to what I think was Bonnie. The workers had a lot of work to do, but one of them had a plan. What if these new animatronics could do the work for us? So he plugged his laptop into Bonnie and ordered it to take off the arms and legs of all of the endoskeletons laying around and throw them into a pile. And surprisingly, Bonnie did what he was told. Once he was done with the endoskeletons though, he started ripping off the arms and legs of the workers, one by one tearing them apart. One of the workers escaped and told the guys to seal up the entrance with cement, locking Bonnie and all of the dead workers inside. Later on in the epilogues, a group of friends decide to go explore the same pizzeria the Bonnie animatronic was left in. Eventually, they get trapped in there with him, and he starts killing them off one by one. In the newest epilogue, we learned that the Bonnie endo that was killing them was version 2 of the original Mimic endoskeleton, and that Fazbear Entertainment actually built a whole line of these Mimic endoskeletons. And that's basically all we know so far from the epilogue.
Is that epilogue 2?
Obviously,
I mean,
this Bonnie
6?
Mimic endoskeleton is a big
I don't know, because I didn't know anything.
And the big reveal
metaphor,
is that
really? Alright, allow me to skip this ad.
that Burn Trap isn't actually...
So, is he saying that... Okay, is he saying that that Tails is not in the games? Oh god, hold up. I need to...
And that's basically all we know so far from the epilogues. Obviously, this Bonnie Mimic endoskeleton is a big metaphor for Burn Trap.
I'm pretty sure it's not a metaphor. I'm pretty sure it's literally him.
William Afton, but a Mimic endoskeleton that's trying to replicate William Afton. Now, do I believe that the Mimic...
You know, I still think that it's possible that Burn Trap is William Afton, but like... Obviously, the Mimic itself is not William, and the Mimic program is not William, but it could be that Burn Trap was William, and that maybe William used the Mimic to as like a way to what's the word? Like a Trojan horse? Is that the right word? There's 2 words technically. Is that the right use of that? I don't know. That's what. But I hope you guys know what I'm saying. Like it's a way to help him to become whole again, I guess, because there is flesh on Burn Trap. So like you would assume that that's obviously that's from a human. You would think that it was from William, right? So I still think that William could be here, which a lot of people don't like, but I don't really care whether it is him or not. But I think it makes more sense that it partially is. But yeah, the Mimic itself is not William.
We hear about in the epilogues is Burn Trap. Yes. But do I believe that the Mimic we hear about in the epilogues is Burn Trap? Yes. But do I believe the story we hear in the epilogues is 100% how it happened? No. That wasn't the case for the epilogues in the Fazbear Frights books, and I don't think that's the case now. Here's what I think happened. So it seems that in order to cut corners on development, Fazbear Entertainment stole Edwin's Mimic program and used it for their VR game. But when they scanned Mimic 1 into the game, the program quite literally got the spark notes of Afton's greatest hits, because that game quite literally spells out the story of Afton through the minigames. The program then created Glitch Trap, a new digital recreation of William Afton created by the Mimic 1 software. Glitch Trap was now willing to do anything to get out of the VR game and enter the real world. That's where Vanessa comes in. While playtesting the game, Vanessa fell under the control of Glitch Trap, now becoming his reluctant follower who he could control. After Vanessa gets infected, he orders her to make a bunny costume, just like him. She even starts mimicking his behavior, his wave, his shushing motion, his skipping. Glitch Trap then realizes he needs an endoskeleton of his own to occupy, so Vanessa gets to work on that. Vanessa then destroys Bonnie to use his endo for Glitch Trap. We see proof of this in-game. When we first meet Vanessa in the first aid area, she walks away into a gated-off room. This room is where you can find the duffel bag about Bonnie's last whereabouts and also Bonnie's leg. How do I know this is Bonnie's leg? Something that I didn't notice until recently is that these boxes are kind of stacked like they're steps. Like Steelwolf wants you to climb on top of them and examine the leg. So that's exactly what I did. And what I found is something that I've yet to see anyone else discover. As you can probably see, there is remnants of Bonnie's blue paint on the endoskeleton leg. And it's not just in one spot, it's all over this thing. And if Vanessa is using parts of Bonnie's endoskeleton to help rebuild Afton, and one of Bonnie's legs is on this table, the other one is attached attached to Burntrap. And I think it's entirely possible that Vanessa used parts of Scraptrap's endoskeleton and some of the new and old endos that Fazbear Entertainment made, which explains why the other leg doesn't have the same amount of toes as the Bonnie leg. Why would Glitchtrap want Bonnie? Because Glitchtrap wants to mimic William Afton. No other animatronic would make sense. After decommissioning Bonnie, Vanessa then put the Glitchtrap virus into the Bonnie endo. We see this in the FNAF AR emails when Vanessa isolates the virus into one place, aka into the Bonnie endo. Now
okay, so the problem with that is that Bonnie is, well, he's not Burntrap because the Mimic is. The thing about Tales from the Pizzaplex is, while Fazbear Frights might not have been in the games, the epilogues I mean, the Tales from the Pizzaplex, they are. And in fact, pretty much all the stories most likely are. Because, well, I made a short about it in the past, but the main reason is because, well, the original description for Tales from the Pizzaplex when it was first announced was that they would be in the world of the newest games. And then in the actual stories themselves, we see events that directly match what we see in the games, telling us that they do take place in the games and aren't only parallel events. So what I'm saying is that the Mimic is literally not William. The Mimic is literally the endoskeleton that we see in the epilogues, and we know that because, well, the Mimic has both legs, obviously, and then you wouldn't be able to use just one leg or both legs, but not, or one leg but not the other one, and leave the other one behind. You wouldn't be able to do that if it was for Burntrap, because he has both endoskeleton legs already. So the Mimic is Burntrap. Glamrock Bonnie is not Burntrap. Glamrock Bonnie is something else.
Now, all that Vanessa needs to do is get the Bonnie/Glitchtrap/Mimic endo to Afton's body. She does this by using Glamrock Freddy to
and Vanessa doesn't create that
where Afton's body lived. The Bonnie endo, now with Glitchtrap inside of it, then quite literally takes Afton's corpse and puts it on himself. Which is why, when we see Burntrap in-game, Afton's corpse is on a newer version of the Bonnie endoskeleton. We also learned that Bonnie had special pointy fingers so he could play the bass, which is what we see on Burntrap. So yes, Burntrap is not technically William Afton. He's the Mimic 1 software that turned into Glitchtrap that Vanessa then turned into a physical form. If you haven't noticed yet, I have quite literally contradicted myself. At the beginning of the video, I said that the Mimic was Baby, and now I'm saying it's Burntrap. But like I said earlier, we find out that Fazbear Entertainment built their own versions of the Mimic endoskeletons. This is what I believe Burntrap is made from. The OG Mimic in the story with Edwin and his son, I still believe is the Charlie Bot/Baby. The Mimic that Edwin built is never described to have bunny ears. And if you remember, David and the Mimic both had tiger plushies that they carried around with them. And as much as people like to say that it looks like Burntrap is holding a plushie in his arm, every other time we see Afton, his arms
the hell
are at
said
his
that?
side. And in this part of the cutscene, I'm just not convinced
what
that
did he say?
And if you remember, David and the Mimic both had tiger plushies that they carried around with them. And as much as people like to say that it looks like Burntrap is holding a plushie in his arm, every other time
said
we
that?
see Afton, his
That's literally
arms are
not
at
the
his
case.
side.
What?
And in this part of the cutscene, I'm just not convinced that's what he's doing. And if Burntrap was actually imitating holding a tiger plush, that would imply the existence of Edwin, his son, and the tiger plushie in the game's timeline, which I don't see being the case since Edwin is very obviously a parallel to Henry. And in the epilogues where the Burntrap Mimic is featured,
Being a parallel doesn't prevent him from being in the game's timeline, because, well, Sun and Moon are a parallel to Vanny and Vanessa. There's many different events that are parallels to each other, like Ennard taking over somebody's body is kind of a parallel to Glitchtrap taking over Vanessa's body. And then there's other events like Glitchtrap's existence itself and Vanny luring kids, paralleling William's original murders and stuff. Parallel events do happen within the games but that doesn't mean that they're different universes. Edwin, even if he is a parallel to Henry, he still exists in the games, like I said earlier, because of Tales from the Pizzaplex.
It's never described to be holding a plushie or even looking like it's holding a plushie. One thing I forgot to mention about the Mimic is that when it was playing with Edwin's son David, they used to draw on multicolored sheets of paper, which is exactly what we see in the sticky note room in Security Breach. But to get to the sticky note room, you have to go through the sewers until you reach this weird structure. It seems that the Pizzaplex was built on on top of not just the old pizzeria, but some other structure. Judging by the parking spaces, it looks to be an abandoned parking structure, but I think...
Oh wait, I just thought of something. So, Charlie is labeled as the Sticky Note Room character. But what he's saying is that the David, I think his name was, David is a parallel to Charlie, and David drew on sticky notes, and the Sticky Note Room door is Charlie door. So maybe Charlie isn't actually the person that's in the Sticky Note Room, since there are like different colored, or differently, like different writing utensils seemingly, right? Because of like different thickness and on the sticky notes and stuff like that. It could be that some of the sticky notes were old from Edwin's kid, and that there's a current one, and maybe David actually is a parallel to Charlie, but that doesn't mean that he also doesn't exist in the games. Or it could be that it just was David's and then now it's Charlie. Or maybe there's more than just maybe there's more than two characters in the Sticky Note Room, because I think there's 3 different like kinds of thickness for writing in the Sticky Note Room. Like there's the really bold one. There's like a slightly more faded one, but still straight, and one that looks more like a crayon. So there's like 3 different ones. So it could be that one is from Charlie, one is from David, and one is from somebody else, like the bite victim or even Elizabeth or something like that. That could be the case. I'm not saying that that David literally is just only a parallel to Charlie, like he seems to be saying. Because I think it's clear that Tales from the Pizza Box does take place in the games. But that's just something I wanted to throw out there. It doesn't really have to do with this video, like, entirely. It's just something that I randomly thought of based on what he's saying. So let me rewind a little bit, because I was kind of thinking it.
Security breach. But to get to the Sticky Note Room, you have to go through the sewers until you reach this weird structure. It seems that the Pizzaplex was built on top of not just the old pizzeria, but some other structure. Judging by the parking spaces, it looks to be an abandoned parking structure, but I think this could easily be the in-game parallel of the abandoned factory Edwin and his son lived in.
Parallel, no.
Proof? The
literally,
mimic Edwin's son
maybe.
also used to draw on multicolored sheets of paper, like in the Sticky Note Room that is connected right to the structure. And above the Sticky Note Room, we have a workstation with endo blueprints on the table, which mimics Edwin's workstation where he built the mimic. The mimic is also known for tearing off the arms and legs of anything it sees. And what do we see as we enter the Sticky Note Room? Staffbot torsos missing all of their arms and legs. This all seemed like a slam dunk. But even with all of that, I was still having doubts until I realized this. One of the biggest things we know about Edwin's warehouse is that when the Fazbear employees entered it, the double doors locked behind them, trapping them inside. This is exactly what happens when you enter the Sticky Note Room. The big double doors lock behind you, trapping you inside.
Oh.
Also, like I said, I believe the original mimic was Henry's rebuilt version of Charlie. And in the source code, the doors we use to enter the Sticky Note Room are titled Charlie Door.
As I was
there
saying
are just
earlier.
way too many connections here for this to be a coincidence.
I agree.
And all of this is to say that I think my original theory for who lived in the Sticky Note Room might actually be correct. I definitely think it's possible that a robotic version of Charlie occupied that room. Just to clarify, I don't think Edwin is an actual character in the game universe, and I don't think that's his actual warehouse.
That's
all
sad.
I'm saying is that these connections are real, and I think we'll find out way more about what these connections mean in the DLC. My guess right now is that this connects to Henry and the Charlie bots. One thing I've been looking back at recently is the wall code in the sister location room in Security Breach, and what it could possibly mean. If this is Michael's room, let's just assume that Michael wrote the code. And since this room is featured in sister location, there has to be some connection to that game. And I believe that connection is the one time we hear Michael speak in this entire franchise, during his speech to his father. In the speech, he says that he put her, aka Elizabeth, back together.
And I found her. I put her back together.
And in the code on the wall, it says, break and mend, I built the breath. They hunt now, drawn to life. But if Michael is only talking about Elizabeth, why would he be using they instead of she? That's because
I'm pretty sure he's talking about Gregory.
One Elizabeth bot. In the novel trilogy, Henry created 4 versions of Charlie, with the final book literally being titled The Fourth Closet. Now let me point you towards the map we see in sister location during the Funtime Freddy section. On this map, we see the Afton house, Fredbear's, the bedroom from FNAF 4, and the plush trap minigame, with each gray dot representing representing an animatronic. This is something that Rye Toast actually pointed out to me a while back. We see Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, the Nightmare animatronics, and 4 separate dots with 1 in each closet. The 4 Elizabeth bots, 1 for each stage of her life. It's actually heavily hinted at that the Mimic wrote the symbols of the wall code on one of the sheets of paper he was drawing with Edwin's son, solidifying the connection between the Charlie/Elizabeth bot and the wall code. What Scott was trying to do with sister location is something that we never saw pay off in this franchise until now. I believe that this little girl is one of those 4 Charlie/Elizabeth bots that Michael put back together and might have occupied the sticky note room. But like I said earlier, I still believe Baby is going to be revealed as the big bad in the DLC, or at least one of the 4 versions of her. Why do I think this? Well, last month in the 5th Tales from the Pizzaplex book, we were introduced to the Storyteller. Long story short, Fazbear Entertainment built a big tree in the middle of the atrium in the Pizzaplex called the Storyteller. Inside the tree was an AI that had fiber optic cables that were connected to every part of the Pizzaplex and basically controlled everything. The AI ended up being the reason all of the robots started acting more aggressive, which is what we see in Security Breach. Edwin, who still worked for Fazbear, noticed that the Storyteller was making everything worse. Because of this, Edwin decided to sneak inside the tree to see what was behind all of this. And what he found was quite literally a giant white tiger head. The same white tiger that his son and the Mimic were known for carrying around with them. The white tiger was running the same program that he created 40 years ago, Mimic 1. Obviously, this giant white tiger head is a little goofy and out of place. And when I think of a giant animatronic head that's goofy and out of place, I think of the giant Freddy head next to the pizzeria under the Pizzaplex. The Storyteller tree also had a bunch of black fiber optic cables connecting to every part of the Pizzaplex. And what do we find after we see the giant Freddy head? The blob, which looks awfully similar to a bunch of black fiber optic cables in a giant clump. So do I think the Storyteller tree was actually a real thing in the Pizzaplex? No. But do I think it's a giant metaphor for the giant Freddy head and the blob? Maybe.
The Freddy head is not hard to explain away. It's literally just from the it's from the pizzeria. I think that was always pretty clear. It was just from the top of it, and like, yeah, that's how like it was, like, you know, displayed, I guess, to make it recognizable. And the blob wires, I mean, I still think it's clear that Blob is Molten Freddy, so I don't really think so. But I mean, it could be. It could be like they combined with it as well. I don't know about that though. I don't. Maybe.
If Baby really is the in-game version of the Mimic that Edwin built for his son, and the Mimic is represented by the giant white tiger head, then to me that screams that Baby is going to be behind the blob.
I think the main problem here is that he's still saying that Tales from the Pizzaplex is not in the games, but I think it, like I've been saying, I think it's pretty clear that it is. But besides all of that, I think that for the most part, this theory is decent. I feel like I need to rewatch this after I actually read Nexi, the book as a whole, so that I understand further what he's saying, because I still don't know everything about the book. But I do think what he's saying here, for the most part, is pretty strong and makes sense. But I don't think everything does, because of Tales from the Pizzaplex being in the games.
That may sound insane, but we've seen this happen before in the Fazbear Frights. The Mimic is represented by the giant white tiger head, then to me that screams that Baby is going to be behind the blob. That may sound insane, but we've seen this happen before in the Fazbear Frights series. Eleanor ended up being the big bad in those stories. And in FNAF World Update 2, the final boss looks like it's going to be the giant Purplegeist, but really gets revealed to be Chica's magic rainbow, something we see hanging in Charlie's bedroom in the Silver Eyes graphic novels. Now there's one more major thing we need to talk about. I think we can prove in Security Breach that the endos we see in that game are the newer versions of Henry's Mimic endo. As we learned in the story The Mimic, Edwin, aka Henry, was forced to have Fazbear Entertainment buy out his robotics company. And in my last theory, I talked about how in the FNAF 2 phone calls it reveals that Henry was the previous owner and that he lost the company.
We're gonna try to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner or something like that.
What this story reveals is that Henry might have signed away the company, but he was still making all of the robots, which would include the security puppet, which looks shockingly similar to the design of the Funtime animatronics, further backing up that the Funtime's designs were actually Henry's that Afton stole. If Henry really did build all of the animatronics we see in the games, that would include the toy animatronics. And one quirk of the toy animatronics is that they're sensitive to bright light.
Flash your light at him from time to time. Those older models would always get disoriented with bright light. It would cause a system restart or something. Come to think of it, you might want to try that on any room where something undesirable might be. It might hold them in place for a few seconds. that glitch might have carried over to the newer models too.
And so are the Glamrock animatronics.
What are you doing?
And what do we see hidden behind the arcade machine in Glamrock Freddy's green room? His matching toy version in plushie form. I'm aware that this video was insane, but if any of this theory ends up being correct, I will poop myself. But at this point, I'm just ready for some answers, whether I'm right or wrong. If by any chance Steelwool Studios is watching this right now, please, release Ruin.
I don't think they're just gonna do that because of you, man, but you know what? Sure. But, overall, I think this theory was pretty solid for the most part. Like I said, I think it's clear that Tales from the Pizza Box is in the games. I've said that too many times. I keep saying that. I'm sorry. But I think it is. I think it is clear. But, besides that, I do understand what he's saying, and I think that's pretty strong. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I think he's right that there's a lot of connections between Henry and Edwin, but I don't think that that means that they're in completely separate universes. I think that that just means that they're similar characters, and we can use one to determine factors about the other. And we can use the other to determine factors about one. You know what I mean? So I think it's clear that I think that he is absolutely onto something, and I think there's actually absolutely connections here, and I think that for the most part, he is probably right about some stuff, but not everything. Like, I don't think that the wall code is talking about the Elizabeth bots or whatever, and I don't think that the Mimic would... Actually, yeah, okay, here's the thing. I think it's very possible that Elizabeth is involved with Glitch Trap, or Burn Trap, or both, or one or the other, but I kind of doubt that she literally is either of them. But I do think that there are connections. I don't think that he's like saying that they are them or whatever. I'm just saying that I think that's technically possible, but it's kind of weird. But her being an actual villain on her own, following Burn Trap, could make sense. And like I said, I had that exact same theory about Patient, but I had that theory about being Patient 46. So I think it's possible. But I'm gonna end the video there. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about his theory. But I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.